Look at this here. This is an American flag at the White House, which was just moved to half-staff to honor John Glenn. John Glenn, who of course paved the way for space travel as the first American to orbit Earth in 1962, a mission that changed the world. The astronaut and former Ohio senator died in his hometown of Columbus yesterday. He was 95 years old. Here to help us remember the life of a true American hero is the first woman to command a space shuttle and the protege of John Glenn, Eileen Collins. Eileen, welcome. So good to have you here.
Good afternoon.
Tell us about John Glenn. What's your favorite memory of him?
Well, I remember John Glenn as he was very wise, he's very intelligent, he had a lot of courage. He had a calming sense about him. He could calm people down in the room. He was very knowledgeable, very mission-oriented, so he knew exactly what he needed to do on the mission, and he stayed focused on that. He wasn't distracted. And he was the kind of person that I wanted to be like. When I was a child, I read about the Mercury astronauts, I read about the Gemini astronauts, and John Glenn, of course, was such a wonderful role model. I learned about his life, learned about the kind of person he was, and like many other astronauts my age, we would strive to be just like him.
Wow. He was your protege. What is it that he was able to give you that is still instrumental in your life today, Eileen?
Well, I actually got to know him when he came to NASA in 1997, 98, when he flew on the space shuttle. I remember little stories about him. For example, when he was presented with the medical experiments, you know, he was to be the oldest person to fly in space. And the NASA medical researchers had all of these. They had probably dozens, hundreds of experiments they wanted to do on him. Well, he volunteered for everything, which of course he couldn't. They had to tell him, you can't do all that because there just isn't enough time. So he, you know, I admired his ambition. I admired his dedication to the mission. He wanted to do as much as he could. And he wasn't just there for himself, to draw attention to himself. He really wanted to do the right thing for the space program. And I think that's something that all of us should, you know, try to emulate and try to be like him.
When was the last time you saw him, Eileen?
I saw him when the Discovery was rolled. Of course, we retired the space shuttle back in 2011. 1 year later, in 2012, when we rolled Discovery into the National Air and Space Museum, John Glenn was there. He gave a talk. He never wanted to retire the space shuttles. He wanted to keep flying them. The original plan was to fly to 2020 with the space shuttles. But of course, because of the last accident, we decided to shut the shuttle program down. John Glenn didn't agree with that. He wanted to continue flying the shuttles. And there's, you know, pros and cons to that. And he talked about that at his speech at the Air and Space Museum. His vision was not very well. He was telling us that he was losing his eyesight. And at that time, he would have been about 92 years old. But he was still very strong, very sharp, and he gave a great speech at the end of the shuttle program.
Well, pretty remarkable guy, for sure. Thank you so much.
Yes, we're going to miss him.
Yeah, we will. Eileen, it's so good to have your perspective on him and his legacy. We appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you for asking.